The Ezras Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Kiddushin Daf Lamed. We will begin. We begin on daf
Lamed.
Chof Testament Beis with Unfangen Chof Testament Beis about I would say 11 lines from the bottom. Tunir Rabbonim. It's a big question. Lilmei Torah Velisa Isha. He's a bucher and he's learning Torah well. And the question is, should he continue learning Torah and delay getting married and then get married? So the Brisa says these are the choices: to learn Torah or get married. The Gemara says Yilma Torah, he should continue learning Torah, and then afterwards he should get married. The Gemara is going to explain why you can't do both.
Right.
Let's say he's a person that when he's learning, it's disturbing his learning. Valley, he's not married, and the Yetzer Hara Kimtaran. So then Yisa Isha, he should get married. V'achakach, and then afterwards he should v'achakach yilmad Torah, and then he should learn Torah. So Gemara explains like this: Omer Rav Yehuda Omer Shmuel. Halacha, the halacha is like this: Noise Isha, a person should get married first. And then learn Torah.
Right.
Rabbi Yochanan says, what are you putting him? The oil hapanusa to raise a family. Rechaim b'tzavora, you're putting a millstone on his neck. The yasek b'Torah, and then he's going to go learn Torah. So it doesn't make sense that it's going to disturb his learning because his wife is going to call him, go to the store and get me this, get me that. And how could you learn when you just get married? So Rabbi Yochanan holds, no, you should learn Torah and then delay your marriage to when you finish learning Torah and then get married. V'loi pligi is not a machlokes. Halon v'halahu. In Bavel, assuming you get supported the first year. So in Bavel, when you got married, you right away went to learn by yourself in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, you should get married first. There you have pas basali, means you have your Yetzer Hara is not going to bother you because you're married. Then go to learn in Eretz Yisrael where you're not going to be bothered with sarchei habayis, the needs of the household. Your wife can't give you a call, no cell phones. But if you live in Eretz you're living in Eretz Yisrael, then you should continue learning Torah and delay marriage, because if you're going to get married, your wife is right near you and she's going to call you away and disturb you from your learning. So therefore, you should delay getting married if you're in Eretz Yisrael. Mishtabeach le Rav Chizda Rav Huna. The Gemara tells a story. Rav Chizda was saying the praises to Rav Huna about this person, Rav Hamnuna. This Rav Huna is the Adam Gadolu. He's a great person and knows how to learn. So Rav Chizda was singing his praises. Amalei. So Rav Huna said, when Rav Hamnuna visits you, I want to see him. So bring him to me. He also, when Rav Hamnuna went to visit Rav Huna, Rav Huna saw the loy parasudara. He wasn't wearing, let's say, the talus over the head, which is an indication at that time, a special hat that was given only to married people, like a shtramel. Yeah. Why aren't you trugging a shtramel? Why aren't you wearing this thing that's special for married people? Amalei, so Rav Hamnuna answered Rav Huna, the loy nesivnech. I didn't make a chasana. So the Gemara says Rav Huna was so angry that he wasn't married. He didn't want to look at him. He turned the other way. Like in Lahavdil, you're not allowed to look at the face of a Rasha. Amalei, and he told him, Chazu, make certain, I don't want you ever to see my face until you get married. You can't be a single guy and continue to learn. You have to get married. Rav Huna goes according to his opinion. Dama, he said, Ben Esim Shana, if a person's 20 years old, and doesn't want and is not married yet, Kol Yom Ba'avera, every day, his entire life is going to be doing an Avera, even after he gets married later on. The Avera Salka Daitich, is he doing the Avera of Diznus? He's not married. What are you telling me? El Ema, you say, Kol Yom Behir Avera. Every day, his mind is thinking about having znus. So he doesn't have a clear mind if you get married later, because somehow the brain gets affected if you're not married, according to Rav Huna, by 20 years old. Amar Rava, Rava said, and it was also taught in the Brisa, in Rabbi Yishmael, Ad Chav Shana, until a Yid is 20 years old, Yosef HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzapel Adam Moshe Yisi Isha. He's got HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting when he's going to get married. If he reached 20 years old and he hasn't found his wife, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Tipach Atzmoisah, let his bones swell up. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very angry at him. And it's like almost wishing that he gets sick. Maybe he's thinking that by not getting married, he's becoming a stronger person. He's retaining his masculinity. But the Eibishter says just the opposite. You're going to get sick with your bones. Omar Rav Chizda said, the reason why I'm better in learning than my friends than a sivna b'shitza, because I got married when I was 16 years old. V'i have an asivne bar beisa, says Rav Chizda. If I would have got married at 14 years old, we go to Lamed Aleph, have amina la satan gira beinecha. I would have told the satan, I could put arrows in your eyes. In other words, I could put myself in a situation, in a highly sexual situation, and I'm not going to be seduced, because once I would have gotten married at 14, I would have been so young that my mind would have been shaped to be only with my wife. So that's why Rav Chizda said how important it is to get married. And what made him a better Talmud Chacham was he got married at a very young age. Amalei Rava Rav Nosson Barami. Rava said to Rav Nosson Barami, Ad Yodech al Sabri Debrich, when your hand can still reach your son's neck, that means you're still taller than him, then you could tell him what to do. That means you can be mechanech a kid when you still have control over them. What are those years? Mishitzar v'ad esrem v'tartif. When the child is 16 till 22, the parent still has control. V'amri law, and others says, v'tamni sorry, from 18 ad esrem v'ba till 24 years old. And therefore, those are very crucial years, because once they turn 25, 26, the parents lost total control. Kitanoi, like the Chloikas Tanoim, Chanoich lenar al pi darkoi, guide your child according to his ways. Some say it's from 16 till 22, and some say it's 18 till 24. They have to be old enough to take you seriously. So it's either 16 or 18, and yet they can't be too old where they're not going to listen to you anymore. So it's either 22 or 24. Says the Gemara, how much Torah does a father have an obligation to teach his son? Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel. Shmuel said, "Kagoim Zvulun ben Dan." You have to follow the practice of Zvulun ben Dan. Shalimdi Avi Aviv, the grandfather of Zvulun ben Dan, taught his Zvulun Mikra. He taught him all of Chumash, Umishnah, Mishnayos, the Talmud, halachis, v'agadis, and the agadis, and Agadah to Gemara. So we see that teaching your son Torah, you mamash have to teach him Kol Torah Kula. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, Meisvei, let me ask you a question. The Brisa says, Limdei Mikra, if you teach your son Chumash, Ein Melamde Mishnah, you don't have to teach him Mishnayos. V'amar Rava said, Mikra, what does it mean? Mikra, Chumash, Zu Torah, that's Torah Shebiksav. So we see that if a person cannot afford to send his kid to a yeshiva throughout the whole learning, then he should at least pay for his learning of Chumash. But beyond that, if he can't do it, then he can't do it. So we see his obligation ends when he teaches his son Chumash. And as far as Mishnayos and Gemara, the son will have to learn by himself. So how do you say that Zvulun ben Dan, we should follow Zvulun ben Dan's grandfather who taught him everything? Answers the Gemara, you're right. Zvulun ben Dan v'loy Zvulun ben Dan. We follow Zvulun ben Dan, but not exactly like Zvulun ben Dan. Zvulun ben Dan, we follow like Zvulun ben Dan. Shalimdoi avi avid. That here his grandfather was the one that taught him Torah, because in case the father's not around, or it's also good for a grandfather to learn with a grandchild Torah. I'm not sure about a maternal grandfather, but the father's father certainly. But v'loy Zvulun ben Dan, we don't follow the practice of Zvulun ben Dan. Dilu Hasan, by Zvulun ben Dan's case, his grandfather stuffed knowledge into him. Mikra, Mishnah, v'Talmud, halachas, v'agodas. Dilu Hacha, but what's the obligation over here? Is we paskin mikra levad, that if you could only afford Chumash, then you teach your son Chumash, and that's it. and let him learn the rest on his own. Says the Gemara, Vavi Ovav Mi Mechayev, does a grandfather required to teach his son Torah, his grandchild Torah? Vatanya, we learned to the Brayso, you teach only your son, you have to teach Torah, but not your grandchild. Mani Mekayim, how do I keep this pasuk? The pasuk says, Vaidatem livanecha, you should make your son aware, or livnei your grandchild, about the day that you stood at Har Sinai. So that pasuk seems to imply that you should teach them over what you learned at Har Sinai, not only to your son but to your grandson. So we say, Kol hamalamed is b'noi Torah. If that just teaches you that if you teach your son Torah, mala olav akosa, the pasuk considers it ki ilu limda loiv noiv ben b'noi adsoif kol adaris, as if you're teaching not only your son but all the future offspring that comes out from your son. So when you're teaching your son, you shouldn't only look at your son as he is there today, but you think about his kids, that he eventually is going to teach his kids and his kids and it will teach their children. But nevertheless, what you do see from this brisa is that the obligation only is on the father to teach the son. There is no obligation for a grandfather to teach his son. Answers the Gemara, no. Huda'ama kahaitana. He holds like this Tana. Tanya, we learned to the Brayso, you teach your son. I see only your son you have to teach Torah. How do you know you have to teach Torah to your grandson? You have to teach your son and your grandson. Then why does the Chumash say teach your son Torah if you really have to teach your grandson Torah? We darshan only your boys you have to teach, but not your girls. So that's how there is a Tana. There is an opinion that says that it's an obligation on a grandfather to also teach their grandchildren Torah. Omer Rabbi Shua ben Lehi, Kol hamalamed es ben benoi Torah. If you're teaching your grandchild Torah, mala olav akosav ki'ilu kibla mahar Sinai. The Torah considers it as if you got it from Har Sinai. It's a better type of learning, when a grandson and a grandfather are learning Torah. There's like a special shechina, as if he's receiving it from Har Sinai. Once you start teaching your grandchild, it's as if it considered the day that you received the Torah on Chayrev and Har Sinai. Says the Gemara, Rab Chia bar Abba Ashkechel Rab Shua ben Levi. Rab Chia bar Abba found Rabbi Shua ben Levi the Shidi Disney Areshi. He was wearing, like, say, a towel on his head, not the proper head covering for a great rabbi like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. It looked like he put it on his head in a rush. And he was driving or bringing his young kid to the cheder. Amalei. So Rab Chia bar Abba asked him, why are you wearing such a funny hat? It seems that you were in such a rush. Why didn't you take your time to put the proper clothing on? Amalei. So Rabbi Shua ben Levi answered, Mi zutamai diksiv, is it small? What it's written in the pasuk, so even though it's like that when I am teaching and bringing my child to the cheder, it's almost like I'm giving over the Torah to him that was given to me in Har Sinai. So it is like a very close connection when I'm bothering myself to make sure that my kid is on time for the yeshiva. So you shouldn't complain about carpool. Rab Chia bar Abba, from that time story on, he would never eat breakfast. They used to eat like a meat snack for breakfast. I don't know, the extra protein. He wouldn't eat that. He taught his child, reviewed what he learned with his child the day before, and would teach him something new. He felt that is the most important part of your day, is learning with your children. Rabba bar Rav Huna, like Rabba Rav Huna would not eat anything until he brought his child to the base medrash. Again, same idea. Even though he wasn't learning with his child, but still, to get him there, to get him to the yeshiva on time, is much more important than filling yourself up with a breakfast, because it's almost like you're bringing him to Har Sinai. Amar Rav Safra, Mishum ben Chananya. What does the pasuk say? Vishnantim levanecha. What is the meaning of the pasuk that says Vishnantim levanecha? And this is a new Gemara. How should you learn Torah? Al tikri vishinantam evishilashtam. Don't read it as vishinantam. It should say vishilashtam. Read it as if it said you third up your learning. La'olam yishalish adam shnoishav. A person should his years make them in thirds. Shlish b'mikra. The first third of your life learn Chumash. Shlish b'Mishnah. The second third of your life learn Mishnayos. Ushlish b'Talmud, and the last part of your life learn Gemara. Says the Gemara, how could that be? Mi yodea kamachai. Does a person know how long he's gonna live? How do you know how to divide your life into thirds? You don't know how long a person's gonna live. And says the Gemara, like you divide the weeks. 2 days you should learn Chumash, 2 days you learn Mishnayos, 2 days you should learn Gemara. Or, as Taisa says, maybe it's just 1 day. Third of your day should be in Chumash, a 30th day in Mishnayos, 30th day in Talmud. Taisa also says that just learning Gemara is like learning all three, because the Gemara has little Chumash, certainly has Mishnayos, and has its Talmud. Lefichach, therefore, the Brisa continues, Nikru Rishonim Seifrim. The real learners are called Seifrim, right? Pleites base Seifreim, we say in the Shemoneh Esrei. Why are they called Seifrim, the counters? They knew Torah so well. They counted up all the letters of the Torah. Because they taught us Vav, the Gachain, the Vav of this word Gachain, that's half the letters of the Sefer Torah. Dorish is Chetchen Sheteva. When you reach the pasuk Dorish Maisha, that's the half of the Chumash as far as words are concerned. This Galach, when you get to the pasuk V'his Galach, Shal psukim, that has half the psukim of the Torah. You reach the halfway mark. Yichasamenu yichazem yar, ayin, the yar, chetzin shel Tehillim. When you get to this pasuk in Tehillim, the ayin in the word yar, that's the halfway mark in Tehillim. Hurachim yichaparavayin chetzi the psukim. When you get to Hurachim, that's the halfway mark of the amount of psukim in Tehillim. So they really, really knew the Chumash and the Tehillim and the Tanakh very well. That's why they're called Seifrim, because they had accounting for the exact words, the exact psukim, exact letters that are in each sefer. Boyer of Rav Yosef asked the question. You told me that Gachain, the word, the Vav of Gachain, is the halfway mark of the Chumash, of the amount of letters in the Chumash. Well, we always know that there's an even amount of letters in Chumash. The question was, Vav the Gachain, Mahai Gisa. On which side? Is it the first half or on the second half? So Amalei, so Rav Yosef, they answered Rav Yosef, Nesid Sefer Torah v'im ninhu. Let's bring a Sefer Torah and let's start making the count. We'll know what he meant, which half the word Gachain goes on. Or send it through a computer. There was a situation in front of Rabbi Babachana, and they also had a similar question. They brought out a Sefer Torah, and he counted it, and they answered themselves. So let's bring a Sefer Torah, count up all the letters, and we'll see where this Vav Gachain falls. Is it the first half of the letters or the second half? Amalei, so Rav Yosef said that's not a good idea. The earlier times, they knew the spelling of each word, what's missing, and sometimes you spell it more fuller. We're not so familiar. In other words, sometimes our Sefer Torahs may not even be written 100% correctly because we're not such an expert on how to spell certain words. And therefore, mistakes have cropped in. Of course, we have a tradition and a halacha, the way we write a Sefer Torah. But to count wouldn't be a good idea because we don't know the exact spellings of certain words. And therefore, some words are spelled bigger or smaller, and therefore, I'm not sure where the Vav is going to land on the first part or the second part. Second question. Bayer Rav Yosef, V'his Galach, Mahai Gisa. The word V'his Galach, which side did it fall on? The first half or the second half? In words, we don't count Chumash psukim. Let's count which the pasuk V'his Galach, is it on the first half of the psukim of the Torah or the second half of the psukim of the Torah? Answers the Gemara same answer. We don't know exactly how many psukim are in the Torah. Even though you could open a Chumash, it's not exact. In Eretz Yisrael, they took a pasuk that we normally count as one pasuk, and they divided it into 3 psukim. They divided that into 3 psukim, and in our Chumash we count it as one pasuk. So again, it's not clear who's correct over here. So by us counting the psukim, we won't have an answer of where V'his Galach lands. Is it on the first half or the second half? Tana Rabbanim. The rabbis taught psukim Torah. In the Chumash, there's 5,888 psukim in the Torah. Yes, so all of Tehillim has Shmoina, has 8 more than the Torah. Chas Mimenu Divrei Yamin Shmoina, and Divrei Yamin is missing 8. Okay, this is not the way we have the count. We have a much different count in our Chumash. You look it up, but this is what the Brisa says, that there's 5,888 psukim in the Torah. Panarabanan, the rabbis taught, and this is a very important piece of the Gemara. Vishinan Tom levanecha. You should be sharp. What does that mean? The Torah has to be clear in your mouth. In other words, you know how to express yourself. If you can explain it to somebody, then it's clear in your mind. That's the most important part of the Torah, to have it clear. If someone would ask you a question, don't funfa and tell him. In other words, don't use too many words. Say it clearly. You tell him direct. Shnema, we go to the Pasuk, we go to Amud Beis. You refer to the Torah as your sister, just like everybody knows his sister very well, right? And knows that his sister's Aser. So that's how you should learn Chumash. You know it as you know your sister. Another Pasuk says, Kashiram al esbeyesecha, kashiram al luach libecha. You tie it on your finger, write it in the panel in your heart. In other words, it has to be engraved into you. Like spears in the hands of a strong person, so also should be your talmidim. In other words, if you're a teacher, make sure that you're teaching talmidim so that they're clear in their learning. It says the sharpness of the spears of a gibar is very sharp. That means you have to be sharp. If you have a sharp spear, then you can debate other people. And says, praiseworthy is a rabbi. He fills up his empty sheath, his empty basket with good talmidim, who know they're learning sharp. When they have a debate with enemies, so to speak, they know how to debate them because they're visual, they're clear in their learning, and therefore it's a very good reflection on the rabbi if he has talmidim, students who are clear in their learning. Why do students have enemies in the gate? That's the way of learning. It doesn't matter. Afila Abba B'nai, a father learning with his son, where you expect there should be love between them. A rabbi talmida, or a rabbi and his own student, they're learning in one gate, in one area. Naisim Oivim says that they're really enemies with each other because each way has a different way to look at the Torah. They ain't misham, and they don't move from there until they begin to love each other because they each one help each other to understand the learning much clearer. Shnema as vahe besufo. Tikra besufa el besayfa. There it's talking about vahev besufa, talking about the yamsuf, but we read it as if vahev, they become lovers besayfa in the end. When they start off as enemies, people who have different opinions, but eventually they come to love each other. This is a plug to our visual Daf Yomi to learn things clearly. Taner Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Now, here the Gemara goes off on a different topic. What is the Yetzer Hara? So let's view the Yetzer Hara as your spontaneous thought that pops into your head. That's usually negative. That's called the Yetzer Hara, a negative way of thinking that just pops into your head without you doing anything. So what the Gemara is about to say is that the Torah is an elixir for that. You how to take such negative thoughts and channel the energy to your advantage. So that's what the pasuk says. V'samtam. The samtam is devarai. Samtam. Samtam means place the Torah, but place usually is by a physical object. So we darshan samtam. The Torah is a complete elixir, like a medicine. Nimshal Torah kasamachayim. The Torah is like an elixir. Mosh la'adam. Sheikas b'noi makka gedolim. A good example, a man hit his son a big wound. You see, you could give patch to your kids. And then he placed a bandage on his wound. And he said to him, Bri, my son, as long as this bandage is on your wound, you can eat what you want, you can drink what you want, you can take a hot bath or a cold shower. They not to be sorry, you have nothing to be afraid of because I put on a very good bandage. But if you take it off, then you're going to get blisters. So keep this bandage on. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us a patch. What's the patch? He gave us a Yetzer Hara, which the spontaneous thoughts that come into a person's mind is automatically negative. Yisrael, God says to the Jewish people, Bonai, my children, Barasi Yetzer Hara, I created the Yetzer Hara, Ubrasi li Torah Tavlin, and I created the Torah as spices to redirect the Yetzer Hara. If you learn Torah, then you'll never be given over to his power. If you learn something good, you'll be able to endure the advice of the Yetzer Hara. But if you don't have to spend time learning Torah, you're going to eventually be given over to his hand. So there is no, it's standing to get you to do an Avera. So the Yetzer Hara, the spontaneous negative thought, is only, you can only deal with it is if you have some sort of Torah in your schedule. And with the Torah in the schedule, you'll be able to be aware when the Yetzer Hara pops in and redirect it to use it in a positive way. And that is the nature of what Torah is all about. And that's the whole point of the Torah. Not only, if you don't learn Torah, the whole concept, the Yetzer Hara takes over your mind. He just wants you to do a big Avera. So he'll overtake your mind. His fantasy is to do something to you. But if you really want, as the Vilnar, if you really want, then you can rule over the Yetzer Hara. It's not impossible. You have the tools to deal with it. Another 2 more minutes. The Yetzer Hara is a very difficult thing that even the Eibishter who created it called it bad. The Eibishter said that the Yetzer Hara is already from you're young, you're trained to think negative. Rav Yitzchak said, not only that, every day the Yetzer Hara gets stronger. Because at the end of the day, a lot of things you see in life affect you negatively. You could just watch the news and you're not aware that it's going to affect your Yetzer Hara. And so therefore, the Yetzer Hara every single day is getting stronger. It's getting worse every day. So you have to be aware of that. Rav Shimon ben Levi said, not only that, it gets so powerful, it wants to kill you by putting anxiety and stress into your head. It wants to kill you. The Rasha, which is the Yetzer Hara, is searching out the tzaddik and wants to kill it. If you didn't have the assistance of the Eibishter, you wouldn't win this fight. The pasuk says, "Elikim lois yazvenu biyodeh." The Eibishter will not let him in your hand. The Eibishter somehow gives you siyata d'shmaya. If you let the Eibishter into your life, he'll give you the siyata d'shmaya to overcome the Yetzer Hara. Tanur Bey Rabbi Shmuel, it was taught in the house of Rabbi Shmuel. Beni, my son, he said, Rabbi Shmuel, if this repulsive, referring to the Yetzer Hara, is bothering you, it's meeting up with you, try to drag him into the shul. Because there are 2 ways the Yetzer Hara gets to a person. First of all, he makes you cold. He says he makes you uninterested in doing good things. And also, he makes you hot. He makes you desirous to do bad things. So we say like this, if this Yetzer Hara is like a stone, nimoyach, we can melt him down. If he makes you cold, we can make him hot. If he's as hot as an iron, this we could shatter him. Like a hammer that could like a rock that could smash a hammer, and so is like my words as fire that could just break apart metal. But if the Yetzer Hara is like a stone, it makes you cold, right, and indifferent to doing good things. The Torah can make him hot by melting him down. Anybody who's thirsty, let him go to water. In other words, let him go If you're thirsty, go drink water. Water is referring to learning Torah. If you're thirsty for Torah, go drink it. And another pasuk says that the water will make the stones rub out. Okay, so we will stop over here. We learned a lot about the Yetzer Hara, about getting married, about learning Torah, how to raise children. A lot of topics here tonight.
I think all night about the ice.